So my name is Bonnie-Polin Pomper. I'm the aunt of Hersh Goldberg-Polin. On October 7th, 2023, Hersh, along with his best friend, Anar Shapiro, went to the Nova Music Festival. It was to celebrate Hersh's 23rd birthday. He had turned 23 on August 3rd. They went to the Nova Festival, ironically, of unity and peace. It was at this festival that Hersh and Anar ran to a shelter when the massacre began, and when grenades were coming in, they were being thrown out. Ultimately, Hersh was severely injured, and he had his dominant arm, his left arm, blown off by the Hamas terrorists. His best friend, Anar Shapiro, was killed. Hersh was taken by Hamas terrorists into Gaza. This was on October 7th. We heard nothing. We had nothing but hope that Hersh was still alive until April, the second day of Passover, the end of April in 2024, when Hamas put out a propaganda video showing Hersh. And while it was horrific and terrible for the family, we had proof of life. And that gave us more strength and more hope to keep going. That's what we had, hope. Unfortunately, in the end of August, Hersh was brutally murdered at point-blank range with 5 other beautiful people: Alex, Almag, Carmel, Eden, and Ori. The 6 of them were killed in a tunnel by Hamas at point-blank range. My brother John and my sister-in-law Rachel have traveled the world speaking to religious leaders, political leaders, business leaders, anyone who would listen to them, they would talk to try and humanize and personalize Hersh and the other 251 hostages. They would try to tell them stories, because a number is just a number. It is the people. So they told stories about Hersh and the stories of the other people that they knew. I'm not going to repeat those stories, but I do want to tell you 2 stories about Hersh, just so that you can understand what my nephew was like. So the first story I want to tell you about was that Hersh actually served in the Israel Defense Forces. Well, most Israelis do have to serve in the army, in the IDF. Hersh did serve. He served in the Tanks Corps. He was a tank driver. Now, there's a bit of irony here, because Hersh failed his driver's test in Israel more than 6 times. And so the fact that the government would entrust Hersh with a multi-million-dollar vehicle carrying people, but yet they couldn't give him a driver's license to drive a passenger car. So our family likes to think of that as some humor. And at the beginning of his service, he, along with his tank unit, served around Gaza. And after a couple months of this action, Hersh petitioned the army and received, which is pretty rare, he made a request to say he wanted to do more to help people. He wanted to become a medic. And so he petitioned and was granted the ability to become a medic. And that he did. He served out the rest of his service as a medic, helping people. Hersh, another story I want to tell you about Hersh is when he was 7 years old, Hersh and his family, my brother John, my sister-in-law Rachel, and their 2 daughters made Aliyah. They moved to Israel. And Hersh, like many children of the age of 7, were enamored by sports and loved to watch sports. He took an interest in Hapoel Yerushalayim, partly because of the ethos of the team. The team is one that believed in trying to bridge the gaps, trying to do a service group. They were a very service-oriented sports team. And so from 7 years old on, he would get involved in the team, helping out, trying to bridge gap. And he would play against teams, whether it was Jews against Arabs or whether it was other people, they'd play against in sports. And as he got older, the groups would get together and they'd paint murals for the team and cheer on the team. When he was in middle school, he had these harebrained, crazy ideas how he was going to raise money so he can get season's tickets to the games. He did. He did some of these crazy things, and he raised money and did have season's tickets to the games. And he would attend the games. And the more he attended the games, the more involved he got. And he became part of the brigade of Hapoel Yerushalayim, where they'd rile up the fans, and they'd go out and they'd do things, and they'd get people going. And he also met people from the other teams, and he befriended the other teams. One such team was a team from Bremen, Germany. And when the team from Bremen, Germany came to Israel to play, he would talk to the other fans, and they would cheer each other on, surprisingly, because they competed. But they would just get together and find out the differences and what they had in common. And so Hersh was fascinated by this because he really liked to get together and get to know people. When Hersh finished his army service in 2023, April, the end of April in 2023, he decided he was going to take a short trip to Europe. Now, don't be fooled. This was not his long trip, like a lot of Israelis take after they finish the army when they go for a year or so and travel around the world to meet people. This was his short trip, a multi-month trip. And so he had saved up enough money to go to Europe between April and before the high holidays in September of 2023. And he was going to travel with this team from Bremen, Germany. And before he left, my mom, who's 86 years old, said to him, "Hersh, are you really comfortable going into the homes of Germans and traveling with them?" To which Hersh responded to my mother, "Savta, Grandma, they are my friends. I could remember the Holocaust, but we are trying to bring peace. We are trying to make this world a better place." That shut my mother up, which was a very difficult thing to do. And so off he went to Germany to travel with his friends. And he came back before the high holidays, so he came back in September of 2023 to be with his family to celebrate the holidays. And then he was going to leave again in December for his big trip. When Hersh was taken on October 7th, one of the first things that was done is the Bremen team from Germany started raising awareness. They started holding up flyers and posters, and at all the games, they would make announcements with pictures of Hersh and the hostages. They went to the parliament in Germany and even to the chancellor of Germany, talking about the importance of releasing the hostages. And there were some that were Germans. Some hostages were Germans, but pushing for the release of the Germans and Hersh and the other hostages. It was after Hersh was killed by Hamas, and at the Shiva, which is the 7 days of mourning after the funeral, the Bremen team and their fan club came from Germany to bring comfort to John and Rachel. And so, at the funeral of Hersh, my brother gave a eulogy, and at the eulogy, he said, "Yeh zichro mahapecha." Let his name be for a revolution. Afterwards, when we were sitting Shiva, and there was a period of time when the family was all together, and we asked, what did you really mean by that? What do you mean that Hersh's name should be for a revolution? And he said, we want the world to be a better place. We want there to be a revolution for good. We want people to go out and get back the 101 hostages that we need to get back, bring peace to this world, and make the world a better place. And so I say to you, thank you for having me here. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you about Hersh, my nephew, and the other hostages so we can all remember. But let there be a revolution for peace. Thank you.